Going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. My name is Zachary Smith. If this is your first time here, if you just haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video, and also comment down below. Let me know how you're feeling about what was covered in this video or anything that you would like to see in the future as I try to kind of diversify the content on this channel. But we got another NFL video for you today, as you can see in the title. It's going to be a very interesting one. I also want to preface by, because I know what the comments could potentially look like when you look at what the title of this video is going to be and some of the names covered. I am by no means saying that all of these players that I'm going to talk about in this video are going to be superstars in 2023. That is absolutely not what I'm predicting. I think they take a leap from where they were in 2022 into 2023. Now, there's going to be varying degrees of that. Maybe it's a starter taking the next step and becoming a really impact player on that team. Maybe a starter, a superstar. Maybe just a contributor becoming a star. So there's levels to this, obviously, and take that into consideration when I go through the names here. The first thing I'm going to talk about are going to be offensive linemen, just because I don't have really clips to talk about. So let's get those ones out of the way, which you might consider the non-sexy guys. But very, very vital, obviously, to an NFL franchise. It all starts in the trenches. So these guys obviously have very impactful roles for their teams. And I think in 2023, they're all going to take the next step. Let's start out at center. Luke Fortner, the center for the Jacksonville Jaguars, is my guy that I think is going to ascend into that next level of centers in the NFL and really take that next step. 65th overall pick just a year ago, had to step in immediately and be a plug and play day one starter for that Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line. And held his own. I thought he was really good, especially in pass pro. I think there's still some things there that he's obviously got to get better at. I still think that he's learning the position a little bit, but I think that when you look at what he did in his rookie season with that offense as a whole, just really putting guys in a position to succeed. My last video was just about Trevor Lawrence and why I think he can win MVP in 2023. And I think a guy in front of him, Luke Fortner, could go a long way in helping his cause as well. So I really like what Jacksonville started to build there. And I think Luke Fortner, right in the middle of everything, is a big reason why. So he's the guy that I think kind of takes that next step into that, upper echelon of centers in the NFL. I'm not saying he's, the next Jason Kelsey or anything like that, but I do think he is a really good center and is going to be a very good center for a long time. At guard, we're going to go with the guy that was maybe drafted with the thought that he would be a center. And speaking of Jason Kelsey, at one time maybe thought of to be his replacement. Let's go with Landon Dickerson, who I think is kind of settled in there as a guard now in Philly. Really like him as a run blocker, and kind of on the reverse side of how I was talking about with Fortner, I like him more as a run blocker than a pass blocker. I think he can definitely hold his own in both. Still think he's getting a little bit more, trying to refine some technical stuff in pass pro. But really good as a run blocker right away when Philly had to play him. And I think he's still, the only issue with him was injury, right? When you saw him coming out of Alabama, he had torn both ACLs. So the injury concerns with him or why he fell right into Philly's lap. And Philly, I feel like you say that about every single pick that Philly's made for like the last 3 seasons. But they've obviously built something pretty special there in Philly. And you look at that offensive line, losing a piece in Isaac Somalo. I think that Landon Dickerson is just going to pick right back up where he left off last season. I thought he really stood out in the NFC Championship game against San Francisco. And, those combo blocks working with Jason Kelsey, but he held his own in space too. He's a really good athlete at the position. I think really good pulling guard. So I'm excited about Landon Dickerson's future in Philly. No better spot for him to be to just continue to get better. So he's the guy I went with there. And then my offensive tackle that I think really takes the next step, and we start talking about like a Pro Bowl level tackle, is going to be Ike Ekwonu, the tackle for the Carolina Panthers, who I am a huge fan of. You look at that draft class that was coming out that year. You had him, you had Evan Neal, you had Charles Cross. There was a lot of debate like who was number one in that class. I like Ekwonu the most out of them, and I think that he played the best out of them early on. So maybe kind of getting overshadowed there with the year that Carolina had, but the offensive line was not the reason why. Ike Ekwonu was fantastic. That offensive line is really good. It's why a lot of people were talking about Bryce Young going into a really good situation with the coaching staff, with the offensive line that's in place. So his job just got a lot more important now, protecting the blind side of the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young. And I think he's going to do that. So I think that, there's going to be a magnifying glass now on Ike Ekwonu that just wasn't there in his rookie year. Now they're expecting to take another step here. So I really like Ike Ekwonu. I think he's the guy there. All right, now let's have some fun now that we've gotten past these non-sexy picks. let's go to quarterback, and people are to think that this is a homer pick. Let me start out by saying I very much consider Justin Fields in this spot. Obviously, the floor that he offers as a runner, really great athlete. Even like the last 6 weeks of the season, I thought you saw more as a passer too. So Justin Fields was certainly in play here. I went with Kenny Pickett, the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. When you talk about just what he did down the stretch, especially like in those big moments, and always like those 2-minute drills, that ability to just that clutch gene, the ice in the veins, that's typically like the last thing to come for young quarterbacks if it ever comes. Some guys just never develop that aspect of their game. What Kenny Pickett was able to do down the stretch, I think, provides a lot of hope for Pittsburgh Steeler fans. This was my favorite throw of his down the stretch. Let's take a look.
See if they get into another play here with a 2-minute warning. Pierre Paul coming off the field for Baltimore. 2:07 left. Pick it back to the air. He'll throw it down the middle of the field for Sims, who caught it at the 21-yard line. Steven Sims.
Rope to Steven Sims, just an absolute strike down them. And that was in hurry up. He had just completed a pass to Freiermuth on the previous play, gets up to the line of scrimmage real quick, throws that dart to Steven Sims right down the middle of the field, ends up throwing a game-winning touchdown to Najee Harris a few plays later. But again, I just think with what he showed down the stretch, obviously, the concern with him is he going to be handcuffed by the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada? They've done a lot to improve that offense. You look at the rebuild offensive line. I just mentioned Isaac Samala leaving the Eagles. It was to go to the Steelers. You obviously drafted first-round tackle Broderick Jones, brought in Herbig to some insurance, kind of like a swing guard too. And I thought, James Daniels was pretty good last year. Mason Cole, I thought, was pretty solid last year. And Chucha Okorafor kind of is what he is, right? Like really good, not really good. He's fine in pass pro, gives you nothing in the run game, but I think that he's solid enough on that right side. I'm really excited about year 2 Kenny Pickett. They bring in, obviously, Darnell Washington basically can be included with that offensive line when talking about it too. But they bring in Allen Robinson because they needed, some type of insurance in case Calvin Austin, because we haven't seen him play at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how those wide receivers shake out. A year 2 leap from George Pickens could certainly be in play. Deontay Johnson, one of the best route runners in the league, one of the easiest separators in the league, somehow, some way did not score a single touchdown last year. I'm going to go out right now on a limb and say that that's not going to be the case for 2 straight seasons. Really like Pat Freiermuth as a slot weapon. Doesn't give you a whole lot in line, but that's why, they go out and get Washington. So I'm excited about this offense. Obviously, you got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren in the backfield. I think that Kenny Pickett kind of has everything in place besides maybe the offensive coordinator to take a year 2 leap. So I'm really excited about him. Running back, I kind of struggled to find a guy that I was like, I really think takes a leap here. I ended up going with Rachaad White, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back. I obviously really like him. I own him in 3 different fantasy leagues. I think the thing with him for me is that, the big question is he a 3-down guy? Obviously, the pass catching chops are there to be able to play on 3rd down, but with his frame, is he going to really be a between the tackles runner? Is he going to be able to carry, the ball 25 times, get 25 touches? Is his body going to be able to take that type of contact? I think that's a fair question. I just look at them moving on from Leonard Fournette. At least to this point, really haven't brought in a running back that I think, threatens him. Like Chase Edmonds isn't moving the needle for me in terms of how I feel Rachaad White is going to play this season. Whether it's Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield, I think they got to lean on the running game more, obviously, than when you had Tom Brady in town. So this is, and watch this from Rachaad White.
Nice patience, and he's free. Rachaad White, one man to beat, and he shoves him down. He just threw Diggs out of the club here in Munich. Gain of 28. And that's the exclamation point here to end the 3rd quarter. That's something to declare in customs.
I'm saying, so specifically that run, I'm not saying in general he reminds me of him. That looked a lot like Le'Veon Bell, former Steelers running back, on that patience at the line of scrimmage, then hitting the hole, and then obviously the stiff arm there. Like that was vintage. That one specific play, he kind of looked like Le'Veon there. But yeah, Rachaad White, who obviously, you got the pass catching upside with him. So if he's able to do what he did there a little bit more consistently, playing between the tackles as a runner, take that physical contact more, if his body's able to handle that that type of workload, if he can get 20 plus touches in that offense, I mean, I think the sky's the limit for him as a player. And again, really didn't bring in a whole lot of competition for him. So it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him in Tampa, but I'm a big fan. Moving on to wide receiver. I guess my question with him, I definitely think the target share is going to be there. I think they're going to want to, scheme up touches for this guy. How good a quarterback play is he going to get? My guy here is Drake London, the wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, who, you watch him individually, you isolate him on film, you can see that he was winning his matchups a ton. The production started to come along, but obviously, like, if it was just, it's easy to say when you're talking about a position that's attached to another position, right? Like, production is so dependent, obviously, on quarterback when you're talking about wide receivers. So it's hard to just like look at the stats and say this guy's good or this guy sucks. Like, you can't do that. You got to watch the film, see how this guy on his own is winning these matchups against corners. Is he open and the quarterback just not getting the ball? Drake London certainly a product of that. But here's a play, touchdown against, I believe this is against Carolina. But I'm a huge fan of Drake London. I think you looked at that wide receiver class they came out in. Obviously, like, Garrett Wilson kind of stole the show. But Drake London, to me, when you talk about being able to isolate his play, if he can get better quarterback play, the sky's the limit. Let's take a look.
Play action. Over the middle. Caught. Drake London, but a flag for the moment. A touchdown. And London thinks it'll be on the defense. They begin to celebrate already.
Well, you can see the attention. You got three tight ends. You go here with Pitts. Watch how that impacts the safety and how they have to respect that. You got two guys that go with Pitts. Opens it up for London. Good job of reading it by Mariota and then putting it up high with a big, tall receiver. The rookie out of SC can go up and get it.
Herb Street, right at the very end, mentioned the same thing that I was going to. I mentioned the quarterback play. It's going to be Desmond Ridder this upcoming season, at least to start. I mean, they brought in Taylor Heineke as maybe like an insurance policy, but that was Marcus Mariota that he had last season for a good portion of the year, who was not very good. But Mariota on that play specifically does a nice job with the RPO, putting the ball up high. I think that's the biggest thing is when you talk about a wide receiver that has that length that Drake London does, the ability to get his hands away from his frame and make catches away from his body. Those are the types of plays that you're going to see him be able to make. So I think that's why the upside for him, especially in the red zone, is through the roof. And you talked about him and Kyle Pitts working together kind of in unison there. If they can get him going, I really like the idea of a year two leap from Drake London. So I think he's ready to take that next step. At tight end, we're going to, again, obviously banking on the quarterback position. If Sean Payton can get Russell Wilson playing even close to, the level that he showed in Seattle for a good portion of his time there. I felt like he was starting to come down already before his Seattle tenure ended. He even went to Denver, but obviously not a good first year in Denver for Russell Wilson. Sean Payton there now. If anybody's going to be able to fix that offense, if anybody's going to be able to fix Russell Wilson, it's going to be Sean Payton. I love the idea of a leap this year from Greg Dulcich. Now, the other tight end that I was considering here was Chigozie Okonkwo from Tennessee. Ended up going with Dulcich just because I think I'm buying into the idea. I'm still not on the Russell Wilson train, but I'm buying into the idea of an improved version of Russell Wilson, not even close to the Seattle version, but enough where you're getting production from, Greg Dulcich, from Jerry Jeudy, maybe even Cortland Sutton. Like, I think that he's got enough weapons there to be able to rely on those and not have to, be the guy. So let's take a look at Greg Dulcich. I believe this was his first career touchdown.
Russell 9 for 9 to 9 different receivers. Wide open Dulcich. First game in the NFL. Touchdown. Well, you see Dulcich, he's in there in a tight split, and there's nothing complicated to this route. He just runs basically up the sidelines. They run two verticals. J.C. Jackson, it looked.
And that's interesting, that formation, that tight split where he is almost in line, because you don't see that from him. He's typically like a slot weapon. You don't really ask him to block. That's not a strength of his. I did say that was his first career touchdown, which it was. That was also, he missed time. I forgot about that at the beginning of the season. So Greg Dulcich, I think, is definitely in a spot for a huge year two leap. the question to me is how much of a focal point is he going to be for that offense? Obviously, like all the talk has kind of been about Jerry Jeudy after Denver decided not to trade him in Sean Payton's offense. Like he's kind of the guy that everybody's circling is going to have this huge season with not a lot of attention being focused on him. I think Dulcich is ready for a leap in year 2. So big fan of his game, and we will see if that happens. Let's go down. Let's switch sides now to the defensive side of the football. In the interior of the defensive line, he already got a big payday, but here's the thing. Only 1 year as a starter for Draymond Jones in Denver. Now switching over to the Seattle Seahawks, kind of the opposite of the Russell Wilson thing. I'm a huge fan of Draymond Jones. I think that he is going to be talked about a lot more now that he did get this big payday. The magnifying glass is kind of going to be on him to see if he was worth it. I think he's going to live up to this contract. But yeah, like I said, just 1 year as a full-time starter along that Denver defensive line. So let's take a look at one of his plays.
Amari Mathis. Mills looking that way. He lost the football.
That great crowd noise has, that ball gets snapped. Everybody along that offensive line.
So I think when you look at Draymond Jones, obviously the clip that I included there was a pass rush play where he gets to the quarterback for strip sack on Davis Mills, and Denver recovers the football. What I like about his game, even more than that, I think he's definitely got the pass rush juice, is his run defense, his ability to set the edge as a run defender and kind of blow up plays in the backfield. This is a versatile guy. I think you can kind of move him around on that defensive line, probably play D end in Seattle, but I think you could kick him in, even on pass rushing downs and have him run from the interior. I'm very curious as that Seattle obviously has a massive plan for him with giving him the contract that he got. They saw enough within that, limited time as a starter. So I'm very intrigued by Draymond Jones. I think now with this heightened attention being paid to him because he is now, one of the higher paid players, at his position. I think that there's going to be a magnifying glass on his production, and we'll see how that plays out for him. I mentioned Drake London earlier. Let's go with another Drake for my edge breakout player on the other side of Nick Bosa, edge, Drake Jackson for the San Francisco 49ers. They lost a couple pass rushers in free agency. They really like Drake Jackson out of USC. There's a lot of talk about a breakout season for him, and it makes sense. Again, playing the opposite side of Nick Bosa, I think, who's going to obviously command a lot of the attention coming off as Defensive Player of the Year. Drake Jackson's kind of in a prime spot to be able to take a leap. So here we go.
The 43-yard line. Drake Jackson, the rookie out of USC, who's flashed a snap or two in pass rush situations, gets there, and the Broncos will punt it away.
Yeah, and what did Kyle Shanahan say about this guy? Drake Jackson down here at the bottom of the screen. They said he is going to end up being a special one. And here he comes. You could see the blitz look. And for Russell Wilson,
special. They think he's going to be a special one. Hey, who am I to question the 49ers with the way that they've built that defense up, and they're constantly just churning them out there. Drake Jackson, I liked him out of USC. I know that there was some medical stuff with him. There was some off-the-field stuff, non-football stuff that he fell in the draft a little bit. But obviously, landing in San Fran was a perfect spot for him, and it just got sweeter with a couple of those pass rushers leaving town for him now. Got to learn under the tutelage of D'Amico Ryans before obviously moving on to Houston. So I'm excited about him. We'll see. Kind of sticking along with that San Francisco defense. This isn't a guy that is still there, though. He got paid somewhere else. Didn't get paid as much as I thought. By the way, I wanted this guy to be a Steeler. Azeez Al-Shaair, who went to the Houston Texans following D'Amico Ryan. Or no, I'm sorry, he signed with Tennessee. He should have gone to Houston. That is what I predicted before the season, before free agency started. He went to Tennessee. Azeez Al-Shaair, kind of in a limited role in San Fran, didn't play, obviously as much as like a guy like Fred Warner, but when he was on the field, very productive. I really like his instincts. I like his eyes. I think that he is very disciplined, and I think that he's a guy that can go sideline to sideline, obviously stay with running backs, gives you a little something in coverage. Azeez Al-Shaair is my linebacker that's going to, put himself on the map now that he's in a heightened role in that AFC South.
And lesson number 5, police and the haters want to see you die, but you gotta stay alive, cause your family and your kids want to see you thrive. This is how it is on the West.
I didn't realize that there was music playing over that clip. That's hilarious. But you see him diagnose that play very early from the Colts and be able to blow up that play in the backfield. Azeez Al-Shaair, a guy that kind of, again, flew under the radar of that San Francisco defense who was loaded. So it kind of makes sense. You know, Fred Warner's going to get a ton of attention. Nick Bosa is going to get a ton of attention. Hufanga obviously kind of broke out last year within that defense. So there's too many other guys in there for him to kind of steal that much attention. But now, like I said, going, you would think, into a bigger role for the Titans. I'm curious to see how he fares there. My corner pick. This is, you know, a guy that, again, I feel like is kind of flying under the radar. No one talked about Kobe Durant last year for the LA Rams. I feel like he kind of came on towards the end of the year maybe and started getting some conversations that people were talking about him a little bit more. But I really liked what I saw. Let's take a look.
You know, and other guys there like Aaron Donald and Ramsey, but he's the vocal leader, and it's shown.
Wilson goes up top. Almost, might have been, it was picked. What a pick it was, too. That's Durant. Kobe Durant. First, he was able to tap it up into the air and then make a diving catch, the rookie out of South Carolina State.
Great ball skills. You know, again, a guy that wasn't talked about a whole lot, but now with no Jalen Ramsey after they moved him to Miami, you're talking about a guy that's probably going to have to take on a heightened role within that secondary, and I think he's up to the challenge. I think they got a steal. We're going to be talking about, you know, that draft pick for years down the line and say, wow, how did he fall to that spot for them? And, you know, how did he not get this much buzz? So very in on Kobe Durant, his stock, and I think he takes a leap this year. So that's my guy at corner. And then finally at safety, I feel like now on the opposite side, this guy was getting a ton of buzz. However, now with D'Amico Ryans in town running the show there, Jalen Petrie, I think is going to become a household name at safety in the NFL.
Make the second-year quarterback throw for it. Justin Fields steps back, steps up, and airmails that one. Whoa, boy. A couple of Texans were back there playing center field, including Jalen Petrie, who got him earlier in the game. The second interception thrown by Fields. Both.
The safety out of Baylor can kind of do it all. I mean, you can put him in the slot. You can have him play overhang. You can have him play too high. Can play center field. Like, he can do so many things and wear so many different hats for that defense. And I think he's only going to get better now with D'Amico Ryans running the show there. So Jalen Petrie is my guy at safety, and I'm so excited to watch his career because I loved him coming out. And I think that while I was kind of questioning the landing spot at first, now with D'Amico Ryans there, I'm really excited about it, especially with him having the productive rookie year that he had. So there it is. Those are my guys that are going to break out, one guy at each position. Let me know how you feel about it. Let me know who you think is going to break out at each of these spots. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Let me know who you agree with and who you don't. Let's hear it down in the comments. I look forward to the conversation. Appreciate you guys checking out another video. If you're new or if you haven't yet, again, please subscribe to the channel. Leave me a like. Hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. Give me some ideas for future videos. Really enjoy doing this stuff. But until the next one, we'll be back. Bye-bye.